Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Johan and I'm a typical Dutchman. And I'm looking at videos about life and living in Europe or life and living in America. And reacting to all kinds of funny things, crazy things, interesting things. And today we're going to take a look at the video of expats everywhere. We're going to start with a subscribe and a like. And 19 shocking sacrifices Americans make moving to Europe. So now we're talking about sacrifice. What are the sacrifices you have to make when you're coming over to Europe? And it's interesting to look at because usually we see videos about how they have come over to Europe and they have things left behind and not the things that they have to make to sacrifice. So let's take a look at what this gonna be. 19 sacrifices.
Americans now living abroad and over 100,000 moving to Europe each year. It begs the question, what sacrifices do Americans actually make when they choose Europe? And more importantly, which of those sacrifices are so tough that eventually send people back to the US? I want to walk you through the big ones, the ones that we've dealt with ourselves, the ones that friends and family have struggled with, and the ones that you, our viewers, tell us about in the comments, emails, and DMs. Now, these aren't ranked in any particular order, but we have grouped them into clusters with a few ideas for solutions. And if you'd like to jump around like House of Pain, we've dropped chapters in the video so that you can hop to whatever hits home for you. So let's kick things off with the major lifestyle trade-offs Americans typically face. Here's the first thing you need to wrap your head around when Americans move from the US. Many, not all, but many, are relocating from spacious suburban style living into historic European cities where space is at a premium. Whether it's price, availability, or simply the reality of century-old construction, things get
Look at
livability or
this one. Yes, typical old houses, in Dutch houses, all this Dutch new fronts,
simply the reality of century-old construction. Things get tighter fast. Your neighbors aren't just close. Sometimes it feels like they're right on top of you. Size of housing is one of the biggest shocks. Some Americans genuinely want to downsize, while others say that they do, right up until they walk into a 2-bedroom apartment that's under 850 square feet, about 79 square meters. And suddenly, they're questioning every life choice that brought them here.
I can imagine that with all the single family houses in the United States you see in the suburbs with plenty of grass and of lawn around them, the white picket fence as it's called, and then you come over to Europe, and especially in the bigger cities, there is not much space, at least over here in the Netherlands, even more because we are a small country with a lot of people. So I can imagine that if you're getting from such a spacious house into one of the smaller apartments in Europe, that you think, I could imagine, but you could have learned it before you came over.
Take our place in Porto. We're building a 3-bedroom unit that's going to be around 140 square meters. When Kaylee's parents walked through it, her dad kept saying how small it felt, and he wasn't sure if all the furniture would fit. Meanwhile, when our non-American friends walk in, they go, "Holy sh! This apartment is huge." Manny's coming at it from a 4,500 square foot landed home in Central Florida, literally 3 times the size of this city apartment. So of course it's gonna feel small to him. And speaking of landed homes, that leads to the bigger sacrifice, space in general.
I live over here in this house is 104 square meters space, and that's enough for me and not for an entire family. If there was a family, I don't have, but if there was a family, this is a 1-family home with 3 bedrooms, a bathroom, spacious living room, and a kitchen, and downstairs a garage and stuff to other rooms too. So that's a spacious one. I do not want to live in such a 200 or 250. No, but I can imagine. Yeah. Okay. Part two.
A lot of Americans moving abroad are coming from houses with big yards. Some are thrilled to say goodbye to mowing and weed eating forever, but others message us asking if we know any apartments in the city with a garden and a view. The reality is
depending on which city you want to live, but in the city with a garden and a view, it's one or the other.
You can't have it all. If you want a private garden, it's almost certainly on the ground floor, which means that the chances of having sweeping views drops basically to zero. And when a unit with a garden does come up, well, the price reflects the fantasy everyone else has too. That little patch of grass becomes prime real estate. But space issues don't stop at housing or yards. The US offers giant shopping aisles, sprawling parks, drive-thrus for everything, massive parking garages, and parking spaces that you could practically land a plane on. And that brings us to the next thing, cars. Many Americans are used to gas-guzzling SUVs, trucks, and big full-size cars. In Europe, you'll mostly see smaller, more compact cars and SUVs. Trucks are almost always work vehicles, not a fashion statement or a personality type. Luckily, a lot of Americans who move abroad are excited to ditch their cars and use public transportation, something that they might not have access to in the US.
Yeah, the car-driven America versus Europeans, we in Europe mostly use public transportation. Yeah, it's okay.
But if you want a car, just know the trade-offs. You'll likely pay more for the same model than you would in the States. You may have to drive something smaller than you're used to. And if you insist on a bigger vehicle, well, good luck squeezing it down the medieval streets into parking spots clearly designed for horses rather than vehicles. And don't forget, gas is sold by the liter, and it's significantly more expensive than the US.
Significantly, yeah. Very more expensive. Oh man, yeah. But it's in America, it's everything bigger, better, and greater. But now here's just smaller and more down to earth, and we are content with what we have, and that's okay. Content. Yeah.
So keep that in the back of your mind too. Okay, shifting gears. Pun absolutely intended. We're still in the lifestyle sacrifice category, but we need to talk more about medical convenience, not medical quality, because the quality in much of Europe is excellent. What Americans really sacrifice is immediacy. In some European countries, a 24-hour pharmacy is practically mythical, like spotting a unicorn with a lab coat. And when it comes to healthcare, the limitation isn't the care itself, it's the speed. Longer wait times, fewer specialists available at the snap of a finger, limited urgent care options, and no walk-in anything, anytime model like you have in parts of the US. Fortunately for us in Porto, when we've needed something done medically,
in Porto, so he's in Portugal. Yeah.
We've usually managed it within a 15-minute walk of our go-to hospital, thanks to Unilabs. Tests, scans, whatever. It's been surprisingly smooth. But we're fully aware this isn't the case everywhere across Europe. A lot of this ties into the major timetable differences. For example, we were in Graz this summer. We arrived just after 12 noon on a Saturday. Kaylee felt a cold coming on, so we dropped our bags off the hotel, we hit the streets looking for a pharmacy. And what did we find? Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Not at a Saturday afternoon.
Nothing. It turns out that pharmacies in that region shut their doors at midday on Saturday and don't open up again until Monday morning. That was a huge shock, even for us. Timetable differences like these can take a long time to adjust to. Some people eventually embrace it. Others push through the shock phase, adjust for a while, and then later reject the idea that anything should ever be closed when they want it. But these differences go beyond pharmacies and shops.
Yeah. Isn't this luxurious? isn't this what Americans think as being normal? That is for us Europeans, as in, wow, 24-hour shops, 24-hour pharmacies. Why? We enjoy, and as the people who work at those shops, we enjoy our free evening and our weekend, so we don't work 24/7. So there aren't not a lot of shops who are open 24/7. A better work-life balance, yeah, means that not everything is open all the time.
They spill right into meal times. Breakfast and lunch aren't drastically different from typical American times, but dinner can really throw people off. When we lived in Spain, we got used to eating later. Although we still rarely ate as late as our Spanish friends unless we were going to go out with them. Our dinner time was usually around 8 p.m. Now, growing up in the United States,
Dinner time at 8 p.m. in Spain. Yeah, could be. My dinner time usually is 6 p.m. around 6 to 7 p.m.
it was 6 p.m. and then maybe as we became adults, it was like 7 p.m. Meanwhile, some of our Spanish friends didn't even think about eating dinner until 9 or 10. For Americans moving to Southern Europe, this can be a real challenge. Those moving to places like Germany or Poland might feel more at home on this front. But a little warning, I've only mentioned dinner. Mornings across Europe also tend to start slower and later than what many Americans are used to, almost everywhere.
Depending in which country of Europe you are. Again, in the northern and the southern Europe. And where do you work? And what time have you work? And so breakfast and lunch are different for everybody, everywhere, in every nation of Europe.
And going back to the pharmacy example, convenience when shopping isn't just about operating hours. Yes, 24/7 options are almost non-existent, which honestly some would argue is a good thing. But the entire rhythm of shopping is different. Fewer options, fewer giants, more planning. By the way, let me pause here because I want to be clear. I'm not saying any of this to claim that one way of life is better or worse. I'm simply laying out the differences so that you can understand what you're getting yourself into before moving from the US to Europe.
And I hope that I can add to it why this is. Yeah, it's good. It's not better or worse. It's the reality of living in Europe when you're coming over from the United States.
And if you're already here, maybe European life fits you like a glove, or maybe you've been here just long enough to start tearing your hair out over the differences. When shopping, you'll quickly notice that places tend to have fewer options. I still remember the first time we came back to the US after living in Spain. Kaylee's mom asked us to go pick up some peanut butter at the grocery store. Shout out to Publix. I walked down the peanut butter aisle. Yes, an entire aisle of peanut
And no, not an entire aisle of peanut butter is over here in Europe, no matter which country.
butter, only to find 1.5 million jars staring back at me. Different sizes, different brands, crunchy, smooth, low sugar, high sugar, low salt, no salt, organic, fair trade, vegan, gluten-free, lactose-free. I mean, at some point, you expect to see emotionally supportive peanut butter. In Spain, I had two options, creamy and crunchy. One brand, one size. Shopping was done in 12 seconds flat. Now, another thing that hits you living in Europe.
That's the difference, I say, why the prices in the United States are way higher than the prices over here in Europe is because of there's an entire aisle of peanut butter. At a certain point, I guess, let's say, and we'll be fair, 50%, but I think earlier it's 70 or 80%, but 50% of this entire aisle is not being sold and getting out of date and end up in the trash can as being unusable, unsellable, and those are costs. Cost of products bought in and thrown into the trash can as being unsellable, and those costs are claimed on the customer. So, yeah, if you have too much of the same then you throw away half the aisle, and you have to pay for it. And that's what's not happening over here in Europe. You don't have that much of a choice, but it's cheaper because of it.
Europe, there are far fewer all-in-one shopping destinations, or at least they're not conveniently located for most people. So you'll end up making multiple stops: the bakery, the market, the butcher, the produce shop. Some Americans absolutely love this because they build a relationship with the shop owners and feel more connected to their community. Others miss target. Now here's a big one that Americans consistently talk about, consistently ask us about, and which endlessly confuses Europeans: Mexican food. Where do we get good Mexican food?
Where do we get good Mexican food around here? That's a nice question. Where do we get good in Europe? Yeah, I know I live in a small town, and in this small town, not far away, because I am in the center of the town, there is a Mexican restaurant. And if I want to make Mexican food, I go to the grocery shop and I can buy everything that I think is part of Mexican food, like tortillas and the right spices and other stuff. So yeah, in the supermarket, you can get Mexican food pots. But yeah, I don't know.
Food around here. We hear this all the time. And the honest answer is Mexico or the US. Okay, I'm joking, but only a little. Americans have an emotional connection with Mexican food, and it's genuinely hard to replace it in Europe. Most cities have a spot or two where you can get by. If you're picky, let's face it, many Americans are, and your best bet might just be to import spices and seasonings and just commit hard to a taco night at home.
Yeah, okay. Taco night at home? Yes. Yeah, that is right. I don't know how it is in Southern Europe, but you can buy everything you need to have a Mexican night at home with the right spices and all the parts you need. To have a Mexican night outside your home, going out to a Mexican restaurant, I do not know. It's not something that a lot of Europeans do, as far as I know. A lot of Europeans go to the Chinese Indies restaurants out, or they go to the Greek, or they go to the Italian, or they go. So Europeans go to European restaurants. Not much go to the Mexicans. I don't know.
Speaking of home, let's talk electronics. Be very aware that your favorite KitchenAid stand mixer should probably stay in the US. Between voltage differences and plug shapes, a lot of American household electronics simply don't work here, even with a converter. Now,
110 volts, that won't work, because over here in Europe, most of the countries are working, and I believe everyone is working with 220 and then pumped up to 230 volt. So don't bring your 110 volt appliances, because they will fry the moment you put them in one of our outlets.
In my 20s, I tried to bring my Xbox from the US. I plugged it in and instantly fried the power cord.
Yeah. Of course.
Amazing smell, terrible outcome. Some devices can be saved with a different power cable, and yes, you can buy a candy red KitchenAid mixer in Europe. It's currently $499.99 on sale at
in Spain or in Portugal, wherever he is.
KitchenAid Portugal. This is not an ad. So basically, your muscles for comfort and convenience are gonna get a little workout living in Europe. Not in a bad way, just different. Now let's shift into social and emotional sacrifice.
That's the most part that I hear a lot of Americans talk about in their videos when they come over to Europe, no matter which country. Social and emotional sacrifices. It's hard to connect with the locals if you're not familiar with, familiar with the language, and then you don't find that you don't understand the jokes, or you don't understand the serious conversations because you don't have the right words. So not speaking the language makes it only harder to get some to make new connections, to make new friends when you're coming over to Europe. Yeah, this is one of the hardest parts. I can understand it. Yeah, it is.
Because moving abroad doesn't cut the cord, but it definitely stretches it. Here's the thing. To move abroad successfully, you do have to say goodbye to some friends, but you don't have to say goodbye forever. You'll make new friends in your new country, no question. But you'll also want to stay connected with some of your old friends. The tricky part, it takes two to tango. Maintaining friendships from afar is hard because of time zones, physical distance, and changing life chapters. So let me unpack that. Time zones are obvious. While it's midday to you in Europe and you're in full swing, your friends back in the US might just be getting the kids to school. Retirees? Okay, so not much of a problem. But later, when you're winding down and it's a convenient time to chat, your friends might be juggling dinner prep. Proximity matters too. Out of sight, out of mind. When you're physically distant, you naturally focus on the people you see regularly, and they do the same. And finally, life chapters can drift apart. Living abroad changes you, sometimes profoundly. While friends back home may be stuck in their own routines, this disconnect can make you feel like you no longer understand each other because your lives are moving in different directions. Friendships are so important, and yes, some will inevitably fade. But the ones that matter most, you can maintain them if both sides are actively engaged. Family, on the other hand, is different.
Yeah, okay. He's talking about keeping your friends, maintaining your friendship with your friends in the United States. That's what. That could be hard.
You lose some connectivity in the same way, but blood is still thicker than water. Still, most Americans end up seeing their family less often, and sacrifices are inevitable. Missing trips to explore Europe in order for summer vacations or Christmases back in the US. Honestly, this is something that my wife and I have grappled with more and more, especially since having a child. Okay, so full disclosure, I'd like to apologize to my sister and of course my niece and nephew for missing so many key milestones. My nephew's a high school senior who just committed to play collegiate baseball, a sport that he has poured himself into the last 8 years. And I've never seen him play a high school game. Little League, sure, but does that even count? Embarrassing, right? On the bright side, there's still time to see our niece in a play. She's a drama queen in the best possible way. Okay, enough of the guilt trip. Here's what reframed things for us, our daughter. Seeing her interact with cousins on both sides of our family really shifted our priorities.
Big chess.
We now do less of what we want, like traveling and exploring, and do more of what the family needs, moments together. So there's the sacrifice. You're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't.
Yeah.
Move abroad, and you'll inevitably miss big events like births, weddings, and funerals. Or you'll miss big travel adventures in Europe to attend those events. Only you can decide what's worth it. Now, how do we transition away from such a deeply emotional topic? Well, just like this. Let's talk about communication, integration, and identity. And specifically, the one that might sound silly to some, but it's actually a major freakout moment for many. Your phone, better yet, your American phone number. You wouldn't believe how many people write to us insisting they literally can't give up their number.
Can't give up their number. Because it's connected to what? Yeah, I guess he will explain. But if I go to a different country, do I really need my phone number to come along with me? I do not know. I switched my number a couple of years ago when I quit my job, but that was easy. I don't know. He will explain, I guess.
Why? Well,
Yeah.
as Nate Bergaze's George Washington from SNL says, nobody knows. But seriously, some people are so attached to their phone numbers, it's like they have Stockholm Syndrome. They're already paying an outrageous amount for their US phone plans, and now they're considering keeping it while living in Europe, just to hold on to their digits. There are services.
Why should you? That doesn't sound logical to me. Why should you? I can't imagine that you want to keep your phone number because you have a job that requires to have you the phone, or you have to be available for hospital calls, or if you have to be available for. I can imagine that, but if you don't have any of those requirements,
services that allow you to keep your US number if you absolutely need it. But ultimately, it's worth the sacrifice to get a European number once you're living here. We get it. Some of you need your US number for work, and it can make banking a lot easier. Speaking of communication,
but banking. I assume that you get your money over to Europe too, and then eventually leave your bank in the United States as goodbye, and you do all your banking over here in Europe. But until then,
this next one is related, but in a different way. In Europe, English is the official language only in Ireland, Malta, UK, and Gibraltar, although the Brits will insist they're not European, which confuses a lot of Americans.
We're not European. They are Europeans. They're not part of the EU anymore since Brexit, and some of them regret leaving the EU, but they are Europeans if you want or not.
Geographically, to us, it's all Europe. So why does this matter? Because everywhere else, English is a second language, and that's where most Americans end up.
Yeah, that's it. You can watch the video I made yesterday about languages. What? People do speak other languages?
Ease of communication drops when you're speaking English to a non-native speaker. You might need to simplify your sentences, slow down, or even adjust your accent to be understood. And then there's learning the local language, which can feel like a full-time job. A worthwhile one, mind you, but it's still a lot of work. The tricky part about operating in a foreign language is that it can take a long time to feel like yourself again. Often you end up taking on a slightly different character, like an actor in a play. And for some, that tension never fully goes away. Others never fully learn the host language and just operate in English. The struggle is real. Moving abroad isn't just switching countries. You're switching communication cultures. And that can feel way more complicated than you can imagine.
Yeah, especially when you have to deal with government papers, your taxes, other official documents that are only available in the language of the country that you're in. And most of the time you can ask for a translated version, but that's a hot one.
Speaking of switching, let's switch to currencies. We need to talk about the financial and bureaucratic adjustments that come with moving from the US dollar to most likely the euro. You're going to have to sacrifice some currency control. Converting dollars into euros isn't a one-time deal. You'll likely be doing it multiple times across different years, and the exchange rate is never static. You'll gain some months, you'll lose others.
What does he mean? Does he mean that you have still your income from the US and then you have to convert it into euros? Then then I get it that you have to do it several times a year or so. But once you live in Europe and you have your income from Europe, then you don't need to convert into euros because you get paid in euros and your bank account will have euros. But I can imagine that it will take some time, I guess several years, before you start calculating in your head when you see a price for a product that you're starting, oh, is this cheap or isn't? Oh, wait, let me convert it to US dollars. Okay, it's 17 US dollars. So, okay, it's cheap. I can buy it. So the converting in your head between the numbers, between the currency of euros and the US dollars, that just, yeah, I can imagine that will take a long time. We had the same all over Europe when we came from the original currency of our country. In my case, in the Netherlands, we had gulden, and we went from gulden to euros. And wasn't that much calculation, two gulden were 1 euro. But in Italy, I believe it was 1,000 liras was 1 euro or something. So we had a long time to calculate in our heads, oh, wait, this costs 3 euros. Oh, that's almost 6.5 guilders. Ah, that's way expensive. Now we don't. Now we're used to it, but it takes several years to convert between USD and euros. I can imagine, yeah.
When we moved to Spain, the euro to USD rate was around 1.4. In 2020, when we moved to Portugal, it was 1.22. And as of this recording, it's 1.15. Over the past 5 years, it's actually gone 1-to-1. As you can see, the swings can be pretty wild. That 1,000 euro rental could cost you just over $1,000 one month and $1,200 a year later. We use a couple of services to transfer money. The links are in the description section below.
Yeah. Why would you? That's the question.
Hello.
Oh. That's the question. Why would you? Because I imagine that you have a business in the US and that you live in Europe, and then you have your income from your business, and that you need to convert to euros so you can live in Europe. Then okay, then it's logical. But if you live and work in Europe, why should you still have a American account or American? Oh, wait a minute. Because of the gigantic debts, student, your credit card debt and your debt from your studies and debt of this and debt of, yeah, you can't leave your debt behind in the United States. You still have to pay your debts, your credit card debts, or your student, your college debts. Yeah, okay. I get it.
Budgeting can be tricky, and in some ways, you'll need to accept that you're at the mercy of the exchange rate. But let's say that you're earning locally in Europe, then some of that concern does go away. However, you may...
Yeah, when you earn locally, then you don't have to worry about conversion.
Still be sacrificing salary. Monthly wages in Europe are often lower than the US, and upward mobility in the corporate world tends to move slower. Remote work can solve some of those issues, but not all. And whether you're working in person or remotely can affect how easily you integrate into local life. Then there's filing taxes. Now you're filing in 2 locations. Make sure you work with an accountant who understands expat taxes. Now we have a great one that we can introduce you to, and Kaylee has a treasure trove of recommendations coming from viewers over the years. Email her at info@expatsedward.com. A solid accountant ensures that you're neither overpaying nor underpaying. In a nutshell, your financial life gets more complex before it gets simpler. Now this is one that
yeah, because we only pay tax once a year, and it's fully automatically. But getting back to the point of earning less in comparison with the United States, I always say, yeah, you earn not that much money over here in Europe as that you're used to in the United States, but the costs are also lower than you are used to in the United States. So you need less money to have the same luxurious feeling, and maybe even better because you don't have to pay for your college, you don't have to pay as much for your health insurance, you don't have to pay for your car insurance because you can use public transport. So the housing prices are lower, the rent prices are lower, so you don't need as much over here than you would need in the United States. You earn less, but you also need less. Compensation is there.
It gets talked about a lot, and it might even upset some of our European viewers. It broadly
I am a European.
comes down to service culture and consumer expectations. Let me explain. The service industry across Europe is very different from North America. It's often slower, less performance-driven, and can take some getting used to. You might have to get out of your comfort zone and actively engage with a retail worker, because unlike in the US, they might not come up and ask you, "Can I help you with something?" Honestly, I love this. Sometimes I just want to be left alone so I can shop for a while. But the downside is sometimes you can't even find a worker. They're not out here hustling trying to sell you stuff. At service desks, unless it's a big international brand, you likely won't find a standardized, super efficient process to quickly handle your customer issues. And speaking of service desks, let's talk.
Yeah, absolutely. That's I won't be upset as a European. He's right. Sometimes we call a service desk and we have all our employees are busy right now. Please wait. Or you can WhatsApp us, or you can use website X and Y, and or you can do and you wait 10, 15 minutes, and then you're in the all our employees are all crazy. I know.
Talk about returns. The idea of a no questions asked return policy is practically non-existent, and some returns can be painfully slow. And forget about availability and speed. Americans love instant gratification. In Europe, same-day Amazon delivery is a novelty.
Yeah, usually it's the day after. Usually. I get upset when I order something and it's not in the house within 24 or 48 hours. But yeah, I understand that there is in the United States the same day delivery. Oh, wow.
Not the norm. Costco is here. Sorry, Sam's, where you at? But outlets are so few and far between that most of us aren't conveniently near one to take advantage of the memberships or benefits. Now, this one isn't a sacrifice. In fact, it's something that I've come to love about Europe and cringe a bit when I go back to the US. The tipping culture.
There is no tipping culture. I was waiting for it because he was talking about service.
Country has its own approach, but none of them come close to the madness in America. 20% feels like the minimum in the US these days, while in Europe, 5 to 10% is standard, and 15% is considered generous. You will need to get familiar with the tipping culture of the country that you live in.
At most countries, we don't tip. We round up as necessary, because it's not even required to tip, because all our employees earn a decent wage. They get paid as they should be paid. They are not dependent on the tip like it is in the US. Our employees actually earn what they work for. That's why they're more relaxed. That's why they don't jump at you at every store or in every shop and do, "Can I help you?" No, they won't. But usually, let's say, for example, you're going to eat somewhere and you have to pay 47 euros. You say, okay, keep 50. Then you round up to 50. That's €3 tip. And nobody's going to complain about €3 or 47. That's less than 10%. No. Round it up to 50 is easy. You give a €50 note because it's a €50 note, and that's okay. Nobody will come after you. "Oh, sir, you did not pay enough." No.
And honestly, any country that you're going to travel to, but trust me, It's okay to step out of your comfort zone here. You do not need to tip 20% everywhere. In fact,
No.
this is one sacrifice that actually might save you money. You're not losing, you're keeping. And speaking of keeping, if you want to keep our videos coming into your feed, hit the subscribe button and notification bell. That keeps us in business making videos like this one. Speaking of videos, here's the next one that you should watch to learn more about why we left the United States for Portugal. Until next time, let's get moving. Bye.
Okay. Nice video. And a lot of those 19 shocking sacrifices are real. I understand it's hard for Americans to come over and to adjust over here, and most of them are real, but a lot of them, and that's why this video is also a good video. If you watch videos like this, then you get more informed. And like I always say, do your research before you come over to Europe. Because only with research, you can learn how it is over here. Learn, for example, a good language before you come over. So yeah, it's a good video, good information. I hope that I could add something to it. My reaction was a bit more informative. And if you did, then press the like. And if you want to see more of my videos, then this is a good place to start with. And otherwise, hit the subscribe button. Would really be appreciated. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.